Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The sacrifices one has to make for the sake of bad film scholarship. I should tell you, as I think you may know, that tonight's motion picture is Robot Monster. And you may wonder why, with a motion picture called Robot Monster, I am dressed as I am tonight. Usually when robots appear in motion pictures, they do not wear gorilla suits and deep sea diving helmets. However, in this movie, the director, the creator of this film, Mr. Phil Tucker, fools you. And he, in fact, clads his robot monster very much as I am dressed tonight. And the question is, why? Why? We answered that question. Our research staff had the opportunity to speak to the director, Mr. Phil Tucker, and he revealed that there was a very simple, sensible, rational reason that his robot in the movie looks this way. And that is that when it came time to actually film his initial concept, he evaluated the price of robot suits, and they were just far too expensive. They would have thrown his budget way out of line, at least by $70 or $80. So he did have a friend who owned his own gorilla suit, who was part of that honorable Hollywood profession known as Gorilla Suit Man, and this Gorilla Suit Man was willing to stumble around the set for free for a few days. So why not? You put a deep sea diving helmet on your friend, it'll look great, we'll scare everybody. Now this worked out brilliantly for the movie, as you will see. It worked out well for Phil Tucker, it worked out well for film history, and for posterity in terms of immortal bad films. The only person who suffered, and believe me, I know how he suffered, was George Barrows, who was inside the bloody gorilla suit. But this minor problem can only temporarily call our attention away from the glories of the astonishing script. The film is filled with emotional statements, particularly Roman's soliloquy at the very heart of the film, where the poor fellow is called upon to destroy the girl he's fallen in love with, Alice, and he says, "I cannot, but I must. I must, but I cannot." It is very similar to Hamlet's soliloquies in Act 3, where all of a sudden he informs you of his dilemma. You understand exactly what's going on within that hairy heart, and it's very, very moving indeed. You really get right down into that gorilla suit with him, as if there were room with George Barrows inside that gorilla suit. Now, in any event, the quality of the script so perfectly blends with the quality of the rest of the film that it's obvious that the script is also the work of Mr. Phil Tucker, the creator of this motion picture. However, you'll notice on the credits that the script is credited officially to someone named Wyatt Ordung. Now, you may be forgiven for suspecting that Wyatt Ordung is actually a pseudonym. It is not! There's a real person named Wyatt Ordung. We've spoken to him. But he did not write the script. What happened here was that he agreed to type Mr. Tucker's script. Mr. Tucker did not have the money to pay him, so instead of being paid in coin, he was paid in kind by having his name appear with screenwriting credit. I think we can do away with the bubbles at this point. The point of the bubbles, as you'll soon find out, is one of the other brilliant special effects in this motion picture is that there are bubbles throughout. It renders Roman's devastating calcinator death ray. Phil Tucker could have staggered you with special effects, right? I mean, that's a cheap shot. Any Lucas or Spielberg could do that, but it takes a Phil Tucker to come up with the idea of rendering a calcinator death ray with a bubble machine. And one of the things that the calcinator death ray does, aside from making bubbles and stock footage appear, is it eventually renders the Earth back to a prehistoric state. One of the most shocking things in this movie, and I'm sure it will terrify you, is that all of a sudden, with no connection to anything that has gone before, both at the beginning of the film and at the end, you see footage of prehistoric monsters struggling with each other. Big dinosaurs, lizards. It makes no sense. Why is it there? It is there because Mr. Phil Tucker was able to get the use of stock footage from Hal Roach's old classic, 1 Million BC, and this footage looked so much better than anything he himself was capable of filming. Why not throw it in? It'll look great. And the calcinator death ray is what Roman uses to destroy the human race after he comes down here. And he's wiped out everybody except for the last 8, and boy, do you hope he'll get them too by the end of the picture. Claudia Barrett, who plays the love interest here, Alice, who is able to attract not only bare-chested George Nader, but hairy-chested Roman. Alice delivers her lines abysmally. Very emotional, pretentious, intellectual lines about the survival of human beings and human values and civilization, but she does kick very well when Roman finally picks her up. She's also able to communicate some scenes of absolutely smoldering sensuality. Astonishing scenes with George Nader. One of them in particular, a very Freudian scene, shows Alice handling a soldering gun, and it's quite a large tubular one, and she handles this tool so lovingly that one knows that the wedding between her and George Nader can't possibly be far behind in a family picture. Great Guidance is the intergalactic robot gorilla who controls Roman on Earth. Now, you might think that there's a certain similarity between Great Guidance and Roman. You would be correct. They were both played by George Barrows in one of these bloody awful hot sweating suits and by the voice of John Brown. However, Phil Tucker, genius that he was, shows that there's actually a great difference between Roman and Great Guidance. Why? Because you'll see there's a little knob on Roman's helmet that doesn't appear on Great Guidance's helmet, and also Great Guidance wields this as a symbol of authority. A violin bow. Absolutely brilliant. You can see that this is an advanced civilization that clearly respects culture in the deepest sense. Before the film was released, the press was told, in the modest words of the director itself, that this movie, Robot Monster, was brilliant, spectacular, gripping, terrifying, thrill-packed, and tremendously vivid and suspenseful. It also went on to say, in the press book, in writing, Robot Monster has been hailed as the most sensational screen offering of the decade. What it didn't say is who had hailed it as such. Perhaps the director's mother. In any event, today, more than 25 years after this film was released, our research staff had the rare opportunity of interviewing Mr. Phil Tucker to get his reactions to this astonishing motion picture. And Tucker was very frank about it. And what he said exactly was, "To this day, I still believe that not a soul alive could have done as well for as little money as I was able to do. Among low-budget films, it was the most outstanding picture of the year, in my opinion." And then he was silent for a moment, stared off toward the horizon, and said, "For the budget and for the time, I felt I had achieved greatness." Did he achieve greatness? Yeah. Only you can decide for sure. You will watch this film, you will make up your minds. It certainly has achieved greatness and permanence of a sort. It is a lasting monument. But you will decide whether Mr. Tucker lived up to his billing. Then at the end of the movie, I'll be back to tell you a little bit about what happened to this astonishing filmmaker and to some of the other ramifications of this remarkable production. But until then, I'm sure you will be terrified. And at the end of the movie, there won't be a dry seat in the house as you watch this remarkable film, Robot Monster.